Off the ball. This is News Talk.
And you're very welcome back to Monday Night's Off the Ball. It's Richie McCormick here with you until 9 o'clock. Still to come tonight, we'll be talking about a fantastic week's boxing for Ireland over in Minsk at the European Games there. Andy Lee is going to join us around about 8:30 tonight to talk about that, and as well we'll be talking to Enda McGinley and Anthony Moyles about the weekend's football and the permutations that have come from this morning's qualifier draw for round 4 and what may come as well come next weekend. But now it's time to talk hurling, and we'll start with events at Croke Park yesterday that I suppose were defined by that penalty from Mark Fanning.
And this is Mark Fanning. Ball placed 3 yards outside the 21. Just himself and Owen Murphy. Two of the best goalkeepers in the country. Mark drives it. Brilliant goal! Wexford are in front at a crucial time in the game. What a strike from Fanning. What a move that created the penalty. Wexford are in front. 121 to 22. Let's not get carried away. 6 minutes remaining. Munster hurling me backside.
That was definitely the sentiment by about 6 o'clock yesterday evening, especially around the confines of Croke Park and Jones's Road, etc., etc. Wexford 123, Kilkenny 23 points is how it finished. And after the game, a very pleased Davy Fitzgerald spoke with their own Maura Trasny-Kelly.
I'm just a lucky individual that to experience this with a great bunch is unreal, and I'm delighted. They're such a hard working bunch. You have no idea what we put them through. We put them through a lot to mentally be able for a day like today, and they were well able for it, and I think we were deserving winners on the day.
To me it looked like obviously there was a battle on the field, but there was also a battle of wits again between two managers, the top of their game on the sideline.
Today was tactically crazy, and people mightn't realise what's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on there today, even on puck outs, even on other stuff. There was a lot of work done, and it's nice to come out the right side of it, and I'm so happy for the people of Wexford that they get to experience, because there's been 1 or 2 times where things haven't gone our way, and they haven't thrown the knife in your back, or they haven't been at you, they have stuck with you, and it's very important if you get a crowd to stay with you, you have a great chance of doing something.
Yeah, actually at half time myself and Dahi Regan were discussing those puck outs, and Dahi was saying, looking at it, that it looked like you had won that war, that perhaps Kilkenny hadn't expected your strategy.
Yeah, we changed it. It's actually, there's a lot of stuff in it, and between theirs and ours, and I'm just happy it worked out today, and trust me, it was tough going out there.
I know, I was watching you. We were all kind of worried for you watching you, and I was watching it full time. You did the same thing as you did in 2013 when you won that All-Ireland final, down onto your knees. It's like your body can't even hold the joy.
There's a lot of pressure, a lot of stuff, and I actually wanted these boys to win so much. They've been so loyal to me. They would, if I asked them to do anything, they would do it. And if you get a team like that, as I did in Clare with 13, you have a chance of doing something, and I love doing things you're not meant to do. I enjoy that more than anything.
You like winning yourself though, not just the lads?
Every now and again, yeah.
I'll let you off to celebrate, Davy, because I know you want to go and enjoy with your team. This is big for Wexford.
You have no idea. You have no idea what it means to put smiles on people's faces, and I'm happy for them. We'll enjoy it a few days, and then we'll think about what's next.
I'm sure they will, starting with tonight's homecoming. Jamesie OConnor joins us on the line. We'll get to Jamesie in a moment, but first Gizzy Lyng is with us as well. Gizzy, Davy says you've no idea how much this means to the Wexford people and what it means to the Wexford squad. Give us some sense of what it means to you and what it means to Wexford to win that Leinster title for the first time since 2004.
Oh, it's a big one, Richie. I don't know. It's very hard as a former player in some ways to articulate it. When I think about what it means, I probably think back to when I was younger, when I was going to Croke Park as a young fella, when I was seeing my father, and engrossed in the emotion of it, when I was seeing adults around me breaking down crying because DJ Carey took 14 steps and finished us off again in the last minute of the game, or to see us and to be starved of victory in those years as a young fella, so intensely taken with the whole thing, to bring that up to 96 and just the whirlwind experience that was, and to literally see the bonfires on the road that people had spoken about for years but we had never seen, and then right up to 2004 to be lucky enough to be coming home on the bus after beating Offaly, and just going back to that, thinking about coming into Gorey and the Davy said it there, like the gift to be able to give people like hope or to make them smile or to. It's a huge thing. Like it's no bigger in Wexford than anywhere else, I think, other than the fact that we don't get to celebrate it as often. And what's rare is obviously, it's more wonderful at times because you don't get you don't get bored by the celebration of it. We take this. It's huge for us. It's huge for us, and it's huge for. Yeah, the young fella in all of us, it's something I can't really, as a player, I tasted it very, very early on, didn't taste anything that even came close to it for a long time. So to look back as a former player, it's a little bit clouded. I think I'd probably look back as what it was like as a 14 or 15-year-old or an 8 or a 9-year-old, the magic of what that was in terms of what the possibilities of my life was because of it. Were totally changed everything that I would have done. So it's so significant.
Eamon Sweeney, as we mentioned in the news around Gizzy, he says of the Wexford supporters, he says other supporters go to a match, Wexford fans go on a crusade. He also says that Wexford make Leinster hurling feel like Munster. There is that little something that makes Wexford and sets Wexford apart from not only the rest of Leinster but the rest of the country. Kieran cited yourself as one of these people who's not necessarily your average kind of guy. He cited Billy Walsh as being one of those guys. He cited Mick Wallace as being another kind of maverick. Davy fits into that mould as well in terms of how he approaches the game. But what is it about Wexford that seemingly sets things apart for you down Slaney side?
Well, I wonder just about that reference even to Davy. Like I've kind of felt it's only since kind of coming out of Wexford and looking back in from the outside with people, we'll say over on the West Coast, whatever, they have a particular opinion of Wexford people that I never realised before. And I think it's actually shared a little bit with the likes of Clare. There's a seaside nature to us that we're relaxed. There's an ease in our flow, but then when it comes to the battle, then there's an intensity that comes in, I think. Because I remember, if I could compare it to a hurler, actually, I remember marking Tom Kenny, Richie, in 2012, and I noticed, because I always wondered how Tom Kenny was so much faster than everybody else in the country when he was playing, and I realised that he walked a lot, and I never marked a player at inter-county level who walked a lot. He seemed to glide around, walking, reading the game. But then when he ran, he had all of this energy to sprint. And I would have been nervous marking him, kind of wasting a lot of energy, moving back and forth and trying to read the game. Whereas he was just really calm. But then when he had this burst, he had all of his energy saved for. So I wonder, are we a little bit like that? There's a kind of a calmness to us. But then when the battle comes, and we have this, there's a lovely thing I read. I remember reading it as a 14-year-old. Eddie Kerr had written it in a book about hurling in the 70s, and he reckoned that Kilkenny lost to Wexford in the early 70s. And I think Kilkenny dominated the early 70s, and then Wexford dominated the late 70s. And he reckoned that they lost a lot of those games because of the music that the Wexford people had about 1798 and about their proud past. And there is a definite pride that we have in our place based on that. Whether it's, I don't know what it's like for other counties. There's definitely significant factors for every place that it tunes you into who you are and where you're from. But for us, we do have a great pride in that, and I think hurling is one of the avenues in which that really gets let out. I did feel at times I would be critical of Wexford supporters from the time I'd say 2007 on to 2012. I don't think we were very followable as a team, to be honest, in some respects. I don't think we were representing what Wexford people expected their team to represent, but they certainly are responding now to that, the integrity of the effort that the lads are making, and what Davy, the little bit of X factor, and sometimes I think is a little bit of kind of celebrity stuff that I wouldn't be as comfortable with, but there's definitely a magic there that's after bringing people behind them.
Jamesie OConnor, I want to bring you in here because, when Davy came on board with Wexford, I don't know, obviously the Clare appointment seemed to make sense. The Waterford one to a degree at the time, although given the unusual circumstances of it, eventually seemed to fit. When we heard in, October 2016 that Davy was going to be taking over Wexford, it just seemed like, it seemed like a harder one to imagine than it's actually transpired to be. But given all that Gizzy has said there, and given the way that yesterday transpired, the Davy appointment in Wexford seems to make all the sense in the world all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose at the time, Richie, geographically, it's like there's probably few hurling counties that are as far apart and it's a fair haul from 6 Mile Bridge to Wexford Park. So I mean, that was probably one that had maybe people raising their eyebrows. But in terms of the fit, I mean, listen, obviously he won that Ireland with Clare. Had success. He was a big, high-profile name, and maybe that was what Wexford needed at that point in time. And I remember meeting, Tom Dempsey at some point after that, and he said, before Davy was appointed, and he said, listen, the Wexford job is an attractive one, he said, because there's a lot of good talent there. And and in a way, as Gizzy said, look, sometimes it's just a good fit, and his personality maybe, fits the bit of madness maybe that Wexford people have. But certainly in terms of, I suppose, I think a lot of what he brought initially, I mean, just in terms of the professionalism, the attention to detail, stuff like the diet, the nutrition, the number of people in the back room, the video analysis, he certainly brought all that, and I say brought a degree of professionalism to maybe another level that maybe the Wexford players hadn't experienced before that. And then I suppose, the big thing I suppose is getting guys to believe, and that to me was the big thing yesterday. Could Wexford take the step? Could they actually believe that they could do it? And I think that was maybe the missing ingredient that was there. And obviously, other things, tactically, he's very, very aware and astute, and just their efficiency levels. I mean, Wexford had 3 wides in 70 minutes. That's not something we associate with this Wexford team. And to me, they played some great hurling, got some great scores, and were full value for the win yesterday. And fair play to them.
Yeah, they absolutely were. Go on, Gizzy, yeah.
On what James is saying there, because they stood on the sideline over in Boston in the series over there in Fenway in winter, and I was talking to Davy, and we were chatting about, we were going back over years gone by and stuff like that, and then I was asking him about some of the challenges that he had, and that was actually the thing that he said that he really kind of got stuck into when we were talking, was about the belief. Because I've often wondered how we would be playing against Kilkenny, trained for 8 or 9 months of the year, and after 10 minutes looked like we were bed out on our feet. Like, it didn't make any sense physiologically. Like, you couldn't be that unfit. But that belief flows through every single thing that you do, every move that you make. And so his big challenge, he said, was about belief. What he was trying to find the source of where there was a lack of belief, as opposed to how to instill belief in them. And I felt that it was, I felt he had an uphill job at it, to be honest. But one of the things that I think that his tactical nous brings, that certainty, is there's a muscle memory that exists in us as players, that if we can intensify that muscle memory, and it's encapsulated in all that James is talking about in terms of the diet, the professionalism, the backroom, all that stuff makes this possible. But then if you're doing something over and over and over again, there's less actually that you need to be concerned about belief or not having belief. It's like, no, just allow your muscle memory to go through the motions of doing what it can do well. And that's not an easy place to get to. I'm not a big fan of that kind of mechanization stuff, the excessive professionalism in sport, but I do see the benefits of it for a team like Wexford. It's like that. Given that, it instills a belief in what you can do, because you can actually leave belief aside for a while, even though that's kind of paradoxical,
Yeah, we mentioned Jamesie, his thoroughness, Davys. Anthony Daly wrote about it today in the Examiner, saying that essentially it was the players who went to 6 Mile Bridge last year and convinced them to stay on for a third year. Like, clearly this belief thing was a two-way street. They, despite the fact, and you would have seen it last year, the nature of their exit to Clare in the All-Ireland Championship, they thought that something was within their grasp here, that they weren't actually that far away, that Clare result 12 months ago may have suggested might have been the case.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, listen, they were so flat against Clare. I mean, it was potentially a tricky game for Clare, and obviously the Davy factor and all the rest of it, but they just looked fatigued. There was no zip in their play, and I was wondering, listen, was it a case that maybe he'd taken them as far as he could? But the fact that the players wanted him back, I suppose, when I suppose it's a two-way thing, as you said, like when you're the manager and the players are at your door, it gives you, I suppose, an endorsement that, listen, if they want me, that's a big thing. I have the dressing room behind me, I have the full backing of the players, and that, that means you have a chance of going somewhere, because to win, whether it's a Leinster title or a Munster title, everyone has to be putting in the one direction, the same direction, and everything has to be right. And that's a big part of it. And I think as well, given where he's coming from, as I said, with us and Clare, we had the same doubts that Gizzy referenced earlier, about are we good enough and all the rest of it. And there's no doubt about it. Like, once we won that first All Ireland with Clare, I mean, Clare clubs went down and won 4 Munster titles and 2 All Ireland titles in the 4 or 5 years after that. That wouldn't have happened without, as I said, the guys that had success with Clare taking that belief back to their clubs and convincing maybe their teammates that, listen, we can win this and we're good enough to do this and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's something that if you're from Kilkenny or you're from Tipperary, you're from Cork, you've got that tradition, and it's something you maybe take for granted. But you can probably win the big matches without it. And Wexford certainly believed in what they were doing yesterday, and I suppose their track record against Kilkenny speaks for itself. I mean, they beat them obviously 2 years ago, were very unlucky last year and went toe to toe with them, and obviously the draw in Wexford Park a couple of weeks ago. So they believe that they could do it. But it's one thing believing it. You've got to go out and perform yesterday, and that for me was the big thing, that their big players stood up yesterday and delivered. I mean, McDonald, 4 points in play. He was excellent. Rory O'Connor thought was brilliant. 4 super scores. And obviously was fouled for the crucial penalty. I thought Demo had a good game, out on the middle of the field. And there's a lot of leaders in that Wexford team. And as I said, Lee Chin, the freeze, I mean, he was probably 60-70%, in the games prior to this. He nailed every one of them yesterday. And, you need your big names to do that on the big days to success. And as I said, the Wexford players did that. And, anything is possible now, Richie. I mean, it's Dublin or Tipperary probably if things pan out as expected in the Ireland semi-final, and suddenly all bets are off, and Wexford will feel, particularly given what Limerick did to Tip yesterday, that they have plenty of legs, and legs are something you need in Croke Park, and if the game is played on their terms, well then listen, why can't they get to an Ireland final? And after that, as I said, anything is possible. But it's just great, I suppose, to be a Wexford person this morning, because I remember, after Clare won in 2013, my young fellow was 7, and we came home after school, I'd say most students that week, and stuck on the video of the match, and there was a couple of minutes in that match, we'll say, when I think Conor McGregor got the goal and Tony Kelly got a super point after that, and it just brings a smile to your face, and that's what the Wexford people are feeling this morning. They're feeling a lot better about themselves, and you can put a value on that.
None more so than Liam Griffin, who joined the lads on OTBAM this morning.
And it just makes it so much more pleasurable, given the pain and given the recent pain. I mean, Brendan O'Brien had the statistic this morning that 10 of the Wexford players that featured 4 years ago when Kilkenny beat them by 24 points. 10 players still around from then. Like, that is incredible. That is not just a new generation of players, which it is as well. This is also a changing and the improvement of a current crop too.
Yes, it is, but there's a few things that come together. The standout thing is Davy. That's the standout thing. Whether people like to accept that, that's the standout thing. The plan is the important foundation stone. That's working. Davy worked, but the great thing is we have a bunch of guys who are prepared to knuckle down and do this because they wanted to do it. The desire was there, and their persistence is what you have to say. This is persistence personified, and then the belief that Davy gave them, and the work that Liam done, all that's come together there now. It just doesn't happen overnight. But I think that Davy, you can say what they like about Davy. He has some record, man. He has some record. And if that's the price we pay for Davy losing the head in odd time, what the hell about it? Like, what the hell is the problem with that? Like, this is this is rural sport, and this is bullfighting by a different standard. Like, we're just ordinary rural people, like, and you get out there and you do it and you fucking get on with it, and that's it. And that's what he's done, and that's it. What the hell more do we want? Like, analysing him to death, and he said this and he said that. Look at, we won Leinster. You said it. We are the Leinster champions, and we are on the double, and that's the first time since 1970.
Yeah, first time since 1970, first provincial minor title since 1985, Gizzy. But the important thing, James, you touched upon it there, Tommy did as well, Liam did as well this morning on the show, is that like this yesterday can't be the full stop. They can't let these celebrations get to them. There's an All-Ireland semi-final to be played at the end of the month, and possibly against one of the bigger sides again. So the idea that eyes will be taken off the ball here just can't be let happen.
It's always the danger, isn't it, with the likes for a Wexford or for a Clare, we're looking at Limerick going through it at the moment, and certainly not succumbing to it. I wonder, like, when I think as a Wexford man playing against Tipperary in the Ireland semi-final, I mean, immediately I'm thinking, okay, like, that's grand, enjoy it, because you absolutely have to enjoy it too. Like, there's no question about that. It's not as big a thing, I think, anymore for players to go and get lost in a country pub for 3 days. But it certainly is. They'll certainly celebrate it. But I think focusing ahead to some sort to possibly Tipperary in the Ireland semi-final. If you have that at the start, I think Liam was talking about that, and the bus trip as well. Like, it's a significant moment in the players. I've seen that happen a few times in Wexford. In my own time, it happened where we made certain decisions, but then didn't act on them, and they went down. And that can be kind of a tokenistic thing. Oh, we want you as our manager, and you have the dressing room and all that stuff. But essentially, what you're going down to him, you're going down to Davy, and you're saying, we will do what you want us to do. That's our commitment to you. For you to come back up, we will do whatever you want us to do. That's our commitment, because or else he's not going to come back. If the journey is too much of if he's getting out of them what he got out of the Clare game. So I think that once he had that, and now that he's brought them to a level of success, there's no reason for the players to go back on that. I think they'll whatever Davy says from here on out, they're just going to be with them, and they've got the potential. Like, I mean, I'd still, other than obviously yesterday, now I haven't gotten to see that game yesterday yet between Limerick and Tipperary, so I don't know how Tipperary fell apart so badly. But I still would feel that Tipperary are ahead of us in terms of the calibre, probably based on the calibre of their forwards more than anything else. Yeah. But I still would have put them a little bit ahead of us. So who's way ahead at the moment? I suppose Limerick definitely look like they're ahead of the pack, but Wexford can dare to believe much more than we ever could before. And an All-Ireland final, I mean, the possibility of an Ireland final for Wexford people, for Wexford players, for this team who are full of, they were beaten under 21 by Clare, who was one of the best under 21 teams that played. The current backbone Limerick under 21 team beat them in another, or of their senior team beat them in another under 21 final. This is a relatively successful Wexford bunch. They've got success at their back, so I don't think there's going to be any. I don't think there's going to be anything holding them back, and I hope there's the effect that Jamesie was talking about as well. Of once you kind of cut loose from Leinster and that kind of getting away from Kilkenny, like basically that's what it is, and sure Galway even sometimes too, but more or less trying to get away from Kilkenny. Now that we've got that off our back, it frees up a huge amount of energy, I think, for Wexford. So I'm expecting them to improve. Okay,
Gizzy Lyng, we'll let you go light that bonfire. And Jamesie as well, thanks so much for taking time out to speak to us this evening. We will get to Limerick, if you're Limerick fans listening in tonight. We'll get to Limerick on tomorrow night's show. We'll be back after this.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
Bruce Betting, one of Ireland's leading bookmakers. With best odds guaranteed on UK and Irish horse racing, Bruce Betting has you covered. And with the Bruce Betting app, we're always giving you more. T's and C's apply. Bruce Betting, in-store, online, and now on your phone. Over 18s, please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
The new 192 BMW range, including the brand new BMW 3 Series, is available to test drive at Conlon's, Naas and Limerick. With the latest BMW voice activation technology and the most powerful, efficient engines to date, the new BMW 3 Series is designed for the time of your life. Book your test drive at Conlon's, Naas or Limerick on conlonsbmw.ie.
When you're buying groceries, you think about the number of calories, you think about the ingredients, you think about the best before date. But do you ever think about where it was grown? Who picked it? Who packed it? Does your money go into the pockets of local people? It's not always possible, but whenever you can, buy local and support our proud Irish farmers, growers and producers who really do create wonderful products right here. Our local businesses, suppliers and workers are the backbone of Ireland's economy, and they're here for you. Your money goes further when you buy local. Visit buylocalnow.ie to find out more.